You ever wonder why being the #1 high school basketball player in America sometimes looks like a blessing and sometimes looks like a curse? Because the second that ranking drops, you're not just a 16 or 17-year-old kid anymore. You're a stock. You're a future superstar before you've even played a college game. And if you don't become a multi-time NBA All-Star, you get labeled as a bust. So what happened to all the #1 recruits since 2000? Let's get into it. Starting in 2000, Zach Randolph played one season at Michigan State where he averaged 10.8 points and 6.7 rebounds in limited minutes before declaring for the draft. He was selected 19th overall in 2001 and went on to play 17 NBA seasons. Randolph finished his career with over 18,500 points and 10,000 rebounds, averaging 16.6 points and 9.1 rebounds per game. His prime in Memphis included multiple 20 and 10 seasons, highlighted by 20.1 points and 12.2 rebounds in 2010-2011 when he made All-NBA third team. 2001's highest recruit was Eddie Curry, who skipped college and was drafted 4th overall straight out of high school. He played 10 NBA seasons, averaged 12.9 points and 5.2 rebounds for his career, with a peak season of 19.5 points per game in 2007 with the Knicks. He had an All-Star appearance in 2005. However, a major turning point in his career came that same year when doctors discovered an irregular heartbeat while he was with the Chicago Bulls. The team feared he could have a serious genetic heart condition and pushed for DNA testing, which Curry refused. The situation created tension with the organization and ultimately led to his trade to New York. Although he continued playing, the heart scare followed his reputation throughout his career. 2002, Amar'e Stoudemire skipped college and was drafted 9th overall by Phoenix. He won Rookie of the Year and played 14 NBA seasons, averaging 18.9 points and 7.8 rebounds. He had 9 20-plus points per game seasons, made 6 All-Star teams, earned 5 All-NBA selections, and signed a 5-year, $100 million deal with the Knicks in 2010 after establishing himself as one of the league's most explosive big men. His career was heavily impacted by knee injuries, most notably microfracture surgery in 2005 that cost him nearly an entire season. Despite recurring knee issues, he returned to average 25.3 points per game in 2011 and remained an elite scorer. His ability to sustain All-NBA production after major knee surgery was one of the more impressive comebacks of that era. 2003's #1 recruit was none other than LeBron James. I think this goes without being explained. At the top of 2004 rankings was Dwight Howard, who skipped college and went 1st overall in the NBA draft. Over 18 seasons, he averaged 15.7 points and 11.8 rebounds, won 3 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards from 2009 to 2011, made 8 All-Star teams, and later won an NBA championship. During his Orlando prime, he was one of the league's most dominant and durable players, leading the league in rebounding multiple times while anchoring elite defenses. The turning point came in 2012 when he underwent surgery for a herniated disc in his back. The injury, which occurred shortly before his trade to the Lakers, significantly affected his explosiveness. Although he remained productive and had strong rebounding seasons afterward, recurring knee, back, and shoulder issues meant he was never quite the same MVP-level force he had been in Orlando. In 2005, Josh McRoberts played 2 seasons at Duke. He was a solid starter his freshman year, averaging about 9 and 5, but he broke out his sophomore year, averaging 14 points and 8 rebounds, getting him drafted 37th overall. He played 11 NBA seasons, averaging 5.8 points and 3.9 rebounds, and won a championship with Miami. In 2006, Greg Oden was seen as a generational talent and ranked ahead of Kevin Durant. At Ohio State, he played his entire freshman season with a broken shooting wrist and still averaged 15.7 points, 9.6 rebounds, and 3.3 blocks, leading the Buckeyes to the national title game and winning Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. He went #1 overall in 2007 over Durant. but chronic knee injuries, including multiple microfracture surgeries, limited him to just 105 NBA games. He showed flashes when healthy, but averaged only 8 points and 6 rebounds and never reached a second contract. Oden became the clearest example of a can't-miss prospect whose career was derailed purely by injuries.
Another sad one. O.J. Mayo was one of the most hyped high school prospects of the entire 2000s. He had been a national name since middle school, featured on magazine covers and followed by cameras before social media even exploded. As a freshman at USC, he averaged 21 points per game. He was drafted third overall in 2008, and as a rookie, he averaged 18.5 points per game and finishing second in Rookie of the Year voting. Early on, he looked like a future all-star. However, his career was derailed by league trouble. In 2011, he was suspended 10 games for violating the NBA's drug policy. Then, in 2016, he was dismissed and disqualified from the league for another violation of the NBA's anti-drug program, which effectively ended his NBA career during what should have been his prime years. Considering how hyped he was as a teenager, the combination of league suspensions and stalled development makes his story one of the clearest examples of the pressure and pitfalls that can come with being labeled the next big thing too early. 2008. Brandon Jennings. Brandon skipped college and played professionally in Italy before being drafted 10th overall in 2009. He had a very strong first 6 years, averaging about 16 and 6, but unfortunately in 2015, he tore his Achilles, and he was never quite the same dynamic scoring guard afterward. 2009's top recruit was Derek Favors, who played 1 season at Georgia Tech and was drafted 3rd overall in 2010. Played 12 NBA seasons. Over his career, he averaged 11 points and 6 rebounds. Honestly, not much to say, just a long and respectable career. I wouldn't say he lived up to the #1 recruit hype, though. Harrison Barnes was #1 in 2010, played 2 seasons at North Carolina, averaging 17 points per game as a sophomore, drafted 7th overall in 2012, was a starter for the 2015 Championship Warriors, and is still playing today. He's never been an all-star, but he has always been a top scorer for his teams and has made a lot of money over the years. Anthony Davis was at the top of the 2011 class, had one of the most dominant freshman seasons ever at Kentucky, averaging 14 points, 10 rebounds, and almost 5 blocks per game. Won the NCAA championship with a bunch of fellow freshmen, drafted 1st overall in 2012. He's been one of the best players in the league for the past decade. Nerlens Noel looked like the next Anthony Davis. At Kentucky, he averaged 10 points, 9 rebounds, and 4.4 blocks per game before tearing his ACL, which cost him his entire rookie NBA season and hurt his draft stock, despite still going 6th overall. Before the injury, he was viewed as the #1 pick. Over 9 NBA seasons, he averaged around 7 points and 6 rebounds, settling into a rotational defensive role. Like a few other guys, injuries ultimately derailed what once looked like a franchise-changing trajectory. Andrew Wiggins was getting LeBron comparisons in high school, averaged 17 points per game at Kansas before being drafted 1st overall by the Cavaliers in 2014. But before he ever played a game for Cleveland, LeBron James returned to the Cavs that summer, and Wiggins was traded to Minnesota as the centerpiece of the Kevin Love deal. That move instantly shifted his path from playing alongside LeBron to carrying a rebuilding franchise. He didn't really live up to the hype, but he eventually became an All-Star and NBA champion in 2022. He is currently just 31 years old, which is crazy because it feels like he was drafted forever ago. Duke landed the top recruit in 2014, Jahlil Okafor, who averaged 17 points and 8.5 rebounds for the Blue Devils, won a national championship, and was drafted 3rd overall in 2015. As a rookie with the 76ers, he averaged 17 points per game, but a big reason for that production was opportunity. Joel Embiid was injured and missed the entire season, and the 76ers were deep in a rebuilding phase, giving Okafor heavy usage on a struggling team. As teams prioritized mobility and versatility at the center position, his strengths became harder to feature, and his defensive limitations became more exposed. He finished his NBA career averaging around 10.3 points over 7 seasons, and eventually continued his career overseas. Sky Labissiere entered Kentucky as the #1 recruit in 2015, but averaged just 6.6 points per game in a limited freshman role. He was drafted 28th overall in 2016 based on his potential. In the NBA, he never found consistent production. He has appeared in 3 games for the Wizards this year, but has mostly been in the G League, averaging close to 20 and 7 in 24 games. Josh Jackson was #1 in the 2016 class and averaged 16 points and 7 rebounds at Kansas and was drafted 4th overall in 2017 by the Phoenix Suns. He showed early flashes, averaging 13 points as a rookie, but struggled with efficiency and inconsistent shooting. He bounced between multiple teams and never secured a long-term extension. By 2022, he was out of the NBA. He has not played in the league since then. As of 2026, he remains off an NBA roster, making him one of the more notable top 5 picks whose career peaked early and faded quickly. Marvin Bagley III reclassified up a year and still finished as the #1 recruit in the country for the 2017 class. At Duke, he averaged 21 and 11, won ACC Player of the Year, and was one of the most productive one-and-done players in recent program history. He was drafted 2nd overall in 2018, famously selected ahead of Luka Doncic. His NBA career has been shaped largely by injuries and fit, with early foot and hand issues slowing his development in Sacramento. He just got traded to Dallas at the deadline, and he's been solid for him, averaging around 13 and 9 and showing he can still be a productive interior presence when healthy. The 2018 class was loaded, and sitting at the top spot was R.J. Barrett, who averaged 23 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists at Duke, playing alongside Zion Williamson and still serving as a primary scorer. He was drafted 3rd overall by the Knicks in 2019 and is currently on the Raptors. In his career, he has consistently averaged around 18 to 20 points per game, with multiple 20-plus points per game seasons. Barrett has been durable and productive, especially in playoff runs. While not a superstar, he has developed into a reliable, high-level starter. James Wiseman was very hyped up in high school and was expected to put Memphis on the map. Unfortunately, he played just 3 games at Memphis, averaging almost 20 points and 11 rebounds before eligibility issues ended his season. He was drafted 2nd overall in 2020 by the Warriors, a contender hoping he could be their future franchise center. Injuries, including major knee problems and an ACL tear in 2024, derailed his development, and he was traded before ever reaching a 2nd major extension. He has averaged 9 points in his career in limited roles and struggled to secure a consistent place in rotations. In 2026, he signed with the Pacers, but played just 4 games before being cut. As of March 2026, he is now playing with the Team USA qualifying group, not the main Olympic roster, as he looks for another opportunity to rebuild his value. Cade Cunningham was #1 in high school in 2020, was the best freshman in the country at Oklahoma State, and then was drafted 1st overall in 2021 by the Pistons. He's averaging 25 and 10 for the #1 seeded Pistons this year. I think we all have been able to keep tabs on him, so I'm not going to waste any more time. 2021, Chet Holmgren. Chet averaged 14 points, 10 rebounds, and almost 4 blocks at Gonzaga, showcasing elite rim protection and versatility. Drafted 2nd overall behind PB No J, he missed his first NBA season with a foot injury, but has been balling ever since. He's putting up 17 and 9 a game and is an all-star this year. In 2025, he was a key reason OKC won the championship. I would say OKC got that pick right. In 2022, Nick Smith Jr. arrived at Arkansas as the #1 recruit, but a knee injury limited him to 12 points per game with inconsistent efficiency. Once seen as a top 5 pick, he slipped to the late 1st round in 2023. As a rookie in Charlotte, he averaged 5.9 points while shooting 43% from 3 in limited minutes. The following season, his role expanded to 23 minutes per game, where he put up 9.9 points but shot just 39% overall. Now with the Lakers, he's shown flashes but has dealt with inconsistent minutes and time between the main roster and G League. USC got #1 recruit Isaiah Collier in 2023.
He averaged around 16 points and 4 assists in college before being drafted in the late first round. This year, he's averaging 11 points and 7 assists for the Jazz. He's emerging as a steady, long-term rotation guard with upside. Cooper Flagg is another guy who reclassified up a year and still was the #1 recruit. He had a dominant freshman season at Duke and was the clear #1 pick in the 2025 NBA draft. As a rookie, he's averaging 20 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists, immediately producing at a star level. 2025's top recruit was A.J. Dybinsa. He's averaging 25 and 7 at BYU and will probably be the #1 pick. This year's guy is Tyran Stokes, who is viewed as one of the most physically dominant players in the country. At around 6'7" with a powerful frame, he overwhelms opponents with strength, downhill scoring, and NBA-level athletic tools. However, his recruitment has been surrounded by controversy, including a mid-season withdrawal from Notre Dame High School in late 2025 following reported disciplinary issues, before transferring to Rainier Beach in Seattle. On the court, he can completely take over games, but scouts have questioned his emotional control, body language, and tendency to argue with officials. There's also a perception in recruiting circles that his camp brings an added drama to the process, leading some to label him a very talented headache. Schools like Kansas, Kentucky, and Oregon remain in pursuit, but his long-term success will depend just as much on maturity and structure as raw talent. At the end of the day, being the #1 player in high school guarantees nothing. You see names on here all the way from Skal Labissière to Harrison Barnes to LeBron James. I will say, though, when I was doing the research, the thing that stuck out to me was how many of these guys had career-changing injuries, mostly coming from the guys 7 foot or above. I think we would look at a lot of these guys a lot differently today if it weren't for them getting hurt.